Nerd reactor, roll out.
Hello. Oh, this thing is really live. Feel like I'm on stage now.
You mentioned in the speech there 40 years with Tim Burton. Talk about what important relationship that has been in your life and how it works creatively.
I don't even know how to explain that, because when we first met in 1985, our backgrounds were so similar. He also grew up like myself, a monster kid in Los Angeles. And he didn't seem strange to me at all. He seemed completely normal, as did his films for the next 40 years. So I just think of him something like a brother, really. He's like part of my family in a weird way. I don't really know how to explain it. I love his world. He's given me these amazing opportunities. When you're a composer, you look for those canvases that you could really splash, like make a big painting on, and he's given me these canvases, big canvases to work with, and a tremendous amount of artistic freedom over the years to express myself in ways that most directors would never have allowed me to do. So to say that I'm grateful is not enough.
When revisiting Beetlejuice, how do you make sure you stay true to the franchise, but also add modern takes to it for audiences?
It was real easy, because part of the story was in a new direction, and everything I wrote for it was like writing for a fresh movie. And then when Michael Keaton was on screen, it was just right back to this music that I loved writing 35-ish, I don't know how many years ago, whatever it is. I loved doing it then. That was only one of my first movies that I ever did. And I was sad when it was over, because I was like, I'll never get to write this theme again. And that's the problem with so many of Tim's movies. And I finished Edward Scissorhands, when I finished, it's like, I'll never get to write this again. And I felt that way after Beetlejuice, so to be able to do it again 35 years later was just, what an extraordinary gift and a surprise.
You've been creating new music constantly for decades now. When you go and revisit something that you created in the past, is there a discovery, like a rediscovery of it, that gets you re-energized? Like how do you relate to your older music?
Well, thank you. It's an interesting question, because I'll listen to it, and when it's from a movie from a long time ago, I'll go, wow, that's how I did that. And I actually have to kind of study it a bit, because my style has changed. I really spent the first 10, 15 years of my composing career I knew nothing when I started. I never went to music school. And I learned as I did, as I went, doing films. In every film, I tried to learn something new. So at the point when I was doing, I think it's when we did Batman, and Tim's first movie, Pee-wee, 5th, Beetlejuice, 10th, Batman. He goes, how are you doing 4 films between each of my films? Because I was also in a band, so it wasn't free a lot. And I said, if I don't, I won't be good enough to score your next film. I have to learn how to do it. So when I look at the older films, I go, wow, they're so interesting, so different than the way I write now. But I almost study it like I'm studying the work from another composer and trying to absorb it. But at the same time, it's like, oh my God, this is going to be fun. And I'll never forget, Beetlejuice in particular was surprisingly difficult. When I got there in front of the orchestra, they had a really hard time playing it. And I didn't know why at the time, but at the end of that year, we finally got the score recorded. There was Perez Sarabande put out a best of 88 or something album of music, and they were recording Beetlejuice in London. And the conductor, I love this story, took the music, looked at it on the stand, threw it on the floor and said, this shit is unplayable. And I take that as a great compliment. And it was like such a simple piece, but oddly difficult at the same time, because it was so straight up and down, kind of rigid time. And the conductor that I used at that point didn't understand that at all, and he kept trying to make it sound jazzy. And I was like, just like, no, it really is just exactly what it looks like. And it was an interesting lesson, one of many lessons I learned in those first 10, 15, 20 years.
You talked about growing up here as an LA kid. What concerts did you go to? What venues did you go to?
What, as a kid? Well, I mean, yeah, as a teen, right. I mean, my first concert ever, I wish I knew exactly where I was. I saw the Doors play at the Aquarius Theater. I saw Led Zeppelin, I think was actually my first concert, because I know my mom had to drop me off, and I was really embarrassed about that. You know, you're a teenager going to a rock concert. You don't want people to see your mom dropping you off. And I also, that night, standing there trying to look cool, and the guy next to me had cigarettes, and I never smoked, and I borrowed one, and it's the first and last cigarette I ever smoked in my life. But I saw some great stuff. I saw Jimi Hendrix's last show, and you know, it was an interesting time. I didn't go to a lot of concerts. I couldn't afford to go to a lot of concerts as a young man, but I saw some good stuff.
You said your style has changed over the years so much, and you said you had to kind of re-examine yourself from back then. Most artists will go back and critique themselves.
What?
Most artists, when looking back at their previous work, end up critiquing themselves. Was there anything that you found that you discovered that you actually appreciated about yourself?
Well, yeah, when I went to do the 25-year box set of Tim Burton music, it's the first time I'd listened to Pee-wee's Big Adventure in 25 years. And it was interesting. It was so simple and primitive, but I also thought there's a lesson in that for me, because I wouldn't do it different now. But what I did then, I approached differently, and I tried to actually turn that into something that I should remember how I did stuff before I knew a lot more. And so I would actually go back, like with Beetlejuice, with Pee-wee, you know, study and listen and try to learn from it, because I literally knew nothing when I began to do those scores, other than being a fan of film music. So, I mean, my story is the story of a fan getting pulled into the sport. You know, as if Jack Nicholson at a Lakers game was tossed the ball one night and said, "You're in the court." And it was kind of like that. Tim asking me to score a movie was more or less like that. I was like, me? I'm a fan. I'm not a composer. But I took fandom to heart and embraced it and became what I am, for better or worse. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.